Don't call on you?
All right, good evening. We're going to get started because we value your time as much as we do anyone else's, and I know this is a little unusual. We're going to start off with community services tonight, but before we really get started, the first thing I wanted on the agenda was an overview of all the new legislation that's passed this past session because all of us need to be on the same page with it. So I've asked our city attorney, Baxter Drennan, to give everyone an overview. You have a booklet in front of you. Please take it with you. We'll give you the test in 2 weeks and see how your memory is on it all. So please pay attention. With that, Mr. Drennan, you've got the floor.
Thank you all for being here. As the mayor said, the Municipal League put out a booklet on all the laws that were passed that affect municipalities. It's pretty thick. This legislative session, I would say, was one of the most intensive for cities and really changed quite a bit about the way we govern, particularly in the area of planning and zoning. So I'm going to cover the highlights. You can look at the whole book, and if you have questions after looking at it or think something impacts you, let me know, and I'm glad to answer them. But I'm going to cover the highlights. I've broken it up, hopefully in an order to where when it stops being as applicable to you, we can dismiss you. So like the primary portion of this is going to relate to FOIA, and that covers everybody. Once we get done with the FOIA part, A and P, assuming the mayor says you can leave, you can leave. Then we'll get into some planning and zoning stuff. And I'd say civil service, same thing. The FOIA part's really primary, although there's a little bit about civil service we need to touch on too. All right, so with that, we'll get started. I guess, does anybody have questions beforehand? If you just have some burning ones you want to start with? All right, good. There are two new FOIA laws that impact how we do meetings, really in every fashion. Act 505 and Act 992. Act 505 amends the law about how we do public meetings, and Act 992 gives courts the authority to invalidate the actions of governing bodies if they haven't been done correctly. So Act 505 hits on how we do public meetings, attendance of public meetings, communicating outside public meetings, and then a real kicker is the penalties. Public meetings are defined as the formal gathering together in either a special or regular gathering of a governing body, whether in person or remotely. The remotely part is new, and then they've defined public meetings to no longer include the discussion of a settlement. related to a court action so that we can have meetings to talk about settling cases without it being a public meeting. And if you think about it, it makes sense. Until these go into effect, if we're going to talk about settling a lawsuit, it has to be done publicly, so your whole strategy and what you're willing to pay is public. And then child maltreatment investigations are no longer public when there's an oversight committee. To have a valid public meeting under the new law, there has to be 5 things. There has to be proper notice, which is not necessarily new, but there's got to be proper notice. If there's an executive session, it has to be done correctly. The meetings have to be recorded. And if we've got a website, they have to be published on the website. There has to be access to the public meeting, meaning that a citizen can attend the meeting. There's got to be a method to do that. And then now participation can come in the form for non-city council. So all the commissions, participation can be via video conference. But if there is video conference participation, citizens have to be able to participate publicly with that person. So they've got to be able to hear what they're saying, to be able to ask them a question if they're attending online. It can't just be a head up there that they can't see, they can't talk to, that sort of thing. Does that make sense? The notice requirement has changed as well. The time and place of notice, we've got to provide notice, provide 3 days before the public meeting unless it's an emergency meeting, and then we standard 2 hours. We have to publish the time, place, and date, and we have to do it online, so on our website, on social media, and this goes for all commissions, all council meetings. And then the biggest change is we have to publish our agenda, and we've got to publish our agenda the 3 days ahead of time. And so we can change the agenda after we publish it, but we've got to have an agenda, and we've got to have it published 3 days ahead of time. Changes aren't necessarily bad, but we definitely don't want to be in a practice of making a whole lot of changes to the agenda after we do the initial publication, so that way nobody argues that we weren't really putting out our agenda. Yes, sir. It says 3 days. I think we'd probably to be safe, we do 3 business days. Yes, sir. Thank you for asking that. Executive sessions, we don't get into a whole lot of executive sessions, and I realize this is pretty small for y'all to be able to see. But we can, under the current law and the new law, we can have an executive session when we consider the employment, appointment, promotion, demotion, disciplining, or resignation of any public employee. You can have one to discuss how we would respond to a cybersecurity attack. You can have one to discuss answers and questions for examination materials, and then public water security. So not a ton that's applicable other than the employment part. But to have a valid executive session in a public meeting, there has to be a statement of what that executive session is going to be, and then a call for the executive session. Only the governing body or commission the actual commissioners or the council can be in it. Depending on the circumstances, the lawyer can be there, and then the employee is going to be discussed. Again, depending on the circumstances, can be there. Nobody else outside of that can participate unless they're specifically asked to. So like if there was a question for a supervisor, they could be brought in, things like that. And then once the executive session is over with, a vote, if there is going to be any vote, has to be taken in the public. Otherwise, anything that was discussed in the executive session would be void. All public meetings have to be recorded now in a way that captures the sound. And so it can be a sound-only recording, a sound and video recording, or a broadcast that is capable of being recorded. And then we have to keep those for a year. I don't know about civil service, but everybody else is already doing this to begin with, so nothing too different from how we have operated, but just know that all meetings will be recorded now. We have to have them available for a year. No, it doesn't have to be put online. think again, I don't know about the civil service, but everything else is on Facebook, right, Matt, already? YouTube. If you're not following the city YouTube page, please do that. We need to get our views and likes up, extra income. I don't know, when's the last time we had a civil service meeting? Okay, yeah. Gotcha. All right. Go backwards. Yeah, physical attendance at the meetings. So the city council meetings, we've got to have actual physical attendance unless there's an emergency. But other commission meetings, we can have remote attendance. Kind of talked about that earlier. The remote participation has to be done in a way to where we can verify who the person is. So if you're doing video conference, you'll be able to verify it, that everyone who's physically present in the meeting can interact with the member, and the member can observe and hear. So really, if you've done a Zoom meeting, it's just got to be a Zoom meeting that's done correctly. And all the members of the public have to be able to interact with that person. And then per the law, someone attending remotely cannot receive mileage or per diem any payment for attending that meeting. So that is a downside on that part. Just kind of a repeat. All right, the big thing and the primary reason why we ask everybody to be here tonight, Act 505, I don't know that it necessarily changes the Freedom of Information Act related to having discussions outside of the public meeting, but it really puts teeth into what happens if we do that, if we violate it. So members of a commission, of the council, cannot participate in a communication, oral, written, or otherwise. I don't know what would be other than oral or written, but you name it. If there is a poll, so you can't ask somebody how they're going to vote on something. And a poll is defined as a series of communications where somebody who is being paid by a public entity or an employee of the city effectively asks, what are you going to do on this issue? So how you're going to vote, whether you support or oppose something. You can't ask about can't discuss like what official action you want taken in response to something outside of a public meeting. Those things make sense. So in short, and we'll do it this way. It's not a violation to have a discussion with another member of the commission or the council for background or non-decisional information. So if I could see with P&Z, like, where's this property located? That sort of thing would be a background. How are you going to vote on, the rezone request would be a violation. It is not a violation. Previously, 2 or more members meeting at all would be considered, if they were discussing anything about the commission or the council, would be a meeting. It is no longer a violation if you have 2 or more members discussing only background information. We get into the problem when it's deliberating, taking a poll, asking how people are going to vote, that sort of thing. Does that all make sense? Okay. Yes, sir. You are sending background information, you're okay. But if it's, you should vote this way, or this is why we want something, anything that gets, beyond background information, that gets into substance of why you would want somebody to take an action one way or the other, gets into an issue. Right. So these are some examples. You know, we send out an email about a ministerial act, something that the city's doing, doesn't require a vote, anything like that. Those type things are okay. It's not okay to send out an email, you know, what would you think if we, you know, were planning to do this? You know, how would you vote if we were, you know, we wanted to take this action, that kind of thing. I'm gonna leave the examples. Sorry, I got too many slides here. So where it becomes a little difficult, and I think that we should just not do this, informational meetings versus a public meeting. You can have, you know, background meetings. If we're gonna have a formal meeting where everybody's showing up, from my perspective, if you've got, again, if you got a couple people and you're having coffee and you're talking about where a property's located, that's different than trying to have a whole commission that's talking about background. You're going to pretty quickly get into, in my opinion, you're going to really run the risk of getting into something beyond that. So even though theoretically you can do that, I would just say we don't need to do that. Where a difference is, where people used to get concerned, if you had, I'll take it away from our group, if you had all the school board members at a football game and they were all there to watch football, if they sat too close to each other, somebody could theoretically say that was a meeting because you have all of them there. It's related to school. I've never heard anybody get in trouble for that, but that's the kind of thing that people theoretically worried about. You know, can we have a Christmas party where all the council members are invited? And the answer is now, yes, you can. You just can't discuss how we're going to vote on things, you know, how we're going to make decisions. And that goes for all our commissions as well. But if we're going to have a meeting where everybody's there and you're going to talk about really anything related to the city business, whether you're calling it background or not, I think it needs to be done here in a public meeting with the notice, so we don't run the risk of getting outside of what's legal and not. And here's the reason for that, or the stick, so to speak, with these. If you violate the Freedom of Information Act and you have what should have been a public meeting in a way that's not a proper public meeting, like we talked about, it's a misdemeanor. And I've never seen anybody actually prosecuted for it, but somebody could be. Suppose if you had flagrant violations. But the real risk for the city is that if you have violated this and you have a meeting, the actions that are taken in that meeting can be invalidated. And so think from a planning and zoning standpoint, if you change the zoning, but some folks had talked about it beforehand and they had talked about how they were going to vote. So they had violated it. We can't have a proper meeting. And we get 4 years down the road and somebody finds out, that you had this. It is now a legal question of whether that is a valid vote. And a circuit court could come back and say, no, that wasn't valid, and invalidate it. You might think, well, zoning, maybe that's not that big a deal. If it's A&P and we're spending real money on something, and we find out that expenditure is no longer valid, or the same thing with the council. And so that's why this is so important. One, we want to have meetings that are correct, and we want the public to participate in the meetings as they see fit. But two, we also don't want to put the city in a position where we have something that was passed and done and everybody's been relying on it and we've spent money or done other permanent actions that gets invalidated. Everybody good with that? All right. To protect against this, skip that. To protect against this, at every city public meeting of all the commissions and the council, at the beginning of the meetings, and this will take place starting in August, as we review the agenda for the meeting, after we review the agenda for the meeting, whoever's taking roll, calling the votes, is going to read a statement. You can see it in green. I affirm that I have not engaged in any prohibited discussion, deliberation, or polling regarding any item on this meeting's agenda outside of a properly noticed and open public meeting in accordance with the Arkansas Freedom of Information Act as amended Act 505 of 2025. So we're going to ask everybody, we'll take a roll call and just ask everybody to confirm before the meeting gets started in terms of substance, that they have not, had any of these discussions that would violate the act. That way, you're protected, because you're going to be saying it, and if for some reason you can't say yes, I really don't have a problem. You can talk to your lawyer about whether you take the fifth on that or how you want to handle it, but I'd prefer you say, look, sorry, I just got a phone call and got to leave, whatever it is, but don't participate in the meeting. Don't put the city at risk of the meeting, the actions in that meeting getting invalidated. The better course is not to violate the law in the first place, but if you can't affirm this, don't participate in the meeting. But we're going to ask everybody, every meeting, to do it so we don't get put in a bad situation later. Does that make sense to everybody? You may think that's a bad idea. Okay. Any questions on the FOIA change on that part? A&P folks, if y'all want to leave, just under the 20-minute mark on that. Okay. All right, so next on the list, I'm going to cover these really quickly. And I don't have a slide, I apologize, but for the folks on the Civil Service Commission, there's a couple to talk about. Act 748 relates to the reimbursement for police training. And so now, if we hire an officer that another department paid for their training, if we hire them within 24 months, previously it was 18 months, we have to pay for their prior training, and it's prorated based on how many months it is. And then the big one relates to police and fire examinations, Act 751. Y'all may be familiar with it, but it changed the examination process for police and fire departments. It allows for fire and police departments to hold examinations as needed by the chief of the fire department or the police department, who determine the time of the exams, the date of the exams, and the frequency of the exams. And the commission is, excuse me, they have only an indirect role in the examination instead of, at least my understanding is previously they were allowed to proctor the exam. Now they can just observe it. So it shifts quite a bit, in my opinion, quite a bit of the power related to examinations to police and fire chiefs. Is that fair assessment? Okay. Did you have any other for anything else that directly applied to? Okay. All right. So if y'all want to, you're welcome to stay, but if y'all want to head out. Thank y'all. Thank you, though. The next group they're going to talk about quickly, planning and zoning. And I would say the biggest changes in city governance this year relate to planning and zoning in a way that create, I think, some challenges in how we go about planning and zoning for the future. The first one relates to accessory dwelling units. And I'm sorry, this font's small. It looked bigger on my computer screen. But an accessory dwelling unit is, if you think about it, it's a tiny house. And we have now no regulatory control over accessory dwelling units. Any property that has a single family dwelling on it now can put an accessory dwelling unit on it. We can't, we can charge them $250, for a fee, but we can't add any sort of requirements to it. I mean, in short, if somebody wants to put an accessory dwelling unit, so a house I'm calling it house, that's independently accessed on their property. The city has no regulatory control related to that. And so, no, there's not. I mean, in all honesty, on 322 West North Street, if I can figure out to put a house trailer behind my house, which I cannot, we have no say. Correct. We cannot enact a zoning code that would prevent an accessory dwelling unit on any lot where there is a single-family residence right now. I'm sorry, I'm getting them both directions. They will be able to get utilities, yes, sir. We have to provide them utilities. Assuming that there's utilities, we have to provide them utilities. It would not be an accessory dwelling unit if it's an empty lot. Yes, ma'am. I mean, whether we actually delete them or just understand that they're not in play. I think this is probably something in 2 years the legislature comes back and changes. So, we may think about how we have to deal, if we strike it or we leave it and say, we understand it's not enforceable. Yeah. So in terms of a city, and it's not the city doing it, the only regulation on accessory dwelling units, when in the single family, the same parcel as a single family dwelling are just POAs. So a POA can prohibit it. You can do it through a bill of assurance, something like that, but the city does not have regulatory control there. Yes, sir. So I think that they can tie in. I did not include that part since that's the utilities and they aren't here tonight. Sorry, but I think they can tie in. I believe it's just one. They can do one. Because it's one with a single family home. The next one's really self-explanatory. I know the folks in P&Z have dealt with extraterritorial jurisdiction. There is none. Historically, for background, the city's planning and zoning code applied, effectively, that might be oversimplified, for 1 mile from the city's boundary. And now we no longer have any planning and zoning within that 1 mile territory. And so talk to your JPs about what kind of planning and zoning you want on the boundary of the city. This one, it's pretty interesting. There seems like a solution in seeking out a problem, but if we're going to have code enforcement or anybody do any sort of inspection on a property, or really it's not limited to a property, any inspection done by a governmental body, we cannot provide advance notice to the person to be inspected. So like the property owner, that's where it comes to mind for me. No advance notice. If you have advance notice, the inspection won't be valid. Yes, sir. Bear with me 1 second. I'll see if that says anything about it. I think you would not be able to do that. I mean, I guess it depends on the purpose of the inspection, what you're going to do. If it's a informal, like, hey, we noticed your smoke detectors are out. Y'all should probably look at that. But if we were going to cite somebody for something in the inspection and we gave them notice ahead of time, it would be invalid. Third-party inspectors, and this has to do with review of plans. If we can't get plans reviewed within 60 days for some reason, or I guess any reason, a developer or property owner can hire their own person to review the plans at our expense to tell us that they meet the guidelines. I don't know, do we ever have this? Is this ever a problem? Gotcha. Gotcha. Yes, sir. Well, I think that's a really good point. If if you're so, and I want to be fair, if your intent, if you tell them ahead of time to help them evade detection, to give an unfair advantage, to otherwise, and this is why I was pretty general about this, if you're otherwise interfering with the integrity or impartiality of the inspection process, you can't give notice. So I certainly think it creates a really difficult situation for us if you tell somebody you're coming for an inspection. How could that not be construed as interfering with the impartiality of the process or helping them to manipulate conditions to evade detection and noncompliance? If somebody is going to alter the situation because they know you're coming, how are we not at risk of that? I think the difference would be when someone calls and asks for us to show up, i.e. an electrical inspection, and we tell them we're going to be there between 1 and 4 that day or tomorrow or whatever. I don't think that's going to get us. I think it's any other sort of advance notice. But if they call and ask us to come, I think we're okay. I still think that it's really difficult if somebody wanted to try to argue you've done this, you've told them improperly, but I just think that's one of those practical things we're gonna have to live with. All right. Anybody have any questions on those? There's others, but those were the big ones. There's some things that I don't think really impacted us, but that are interesting. In Arkansas, we can't do rental control. I don't know any cities that were doing it. Maybe Fayetteville was, but we can't control what people charge for rent. Now, we don't have private clubs, but that's in there too. But I'm happy to address if anybody has any questions on other ones. Okay. Well, like I said, if you look at it and you see that you have something that you think's interesting we didn't talk about, I'm glad to take questions later. But otherwise, I'm happy to let the folks from the P&Z. August the 5th. So we're pretty well treating everything as August 1st, just to be safe. Okay? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Do you have a question or getting ready to leave? Fair enough. All right. Yes, sir. Absolutely. I think that would be, a great example of when we can't, if we're going to make sure a private kennel is in compliance with our code, we cannot give them a heads up. All right. For the city generally, there's a ton in there, but again, at the risk of time, there were a few that I wanted to hit. And now I feel a little more y'all, but we've got to consider an ordinance on whether we want to continue to have positions by wards for council members. The default, unless we pass an ordinance, will be that all council positions are at large. And so if we want to change that, we'll have to do that through ordinance. So we'll need to have that on the list for consideration, certainly between now and next November, probably before that. But we want to get that, again, that's up to y'all how you want to do it, but we want to get that looked at. Yes, ma'am. We have one already on the books? Okay. I have to look and make, I don't know if we have to redo it now or not, but I'll look at it. Okay. So if somebody wants to change that, then we'll need to look at that. Not as interesting, but something that we've talked about we'll have to budget for. We have to change the city's website to end in .gov instead of .org. And all city email addresses will have to end in .gov instead of .org. So we have to change everybody's email, all that, for some interesting reason. I need to do some research about retirement benefits to passing spouses for elected officials. But if we want retirement benefits if we don't have an ordinance on the books already, if we want retirement benefits to go to the surviving spouse of deceased elected officials, we need to pass something on that. Already did advance notice those. And then on zoning, we can't, I think this is funny, our zoning code can't apply to county property. So like at the courthouse is the best example, there may be others, but we can't, if the county decided to put in a mobile home park on the courthouse lawn, there is nothing the city can do. We cannot do anything zoning wise for them. Again, there's a number of pieces of legislation in here, but those are the highlights. I guess the only other one, and I don't know how relevant, but we have to, we cannot have any employment policies related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So training, anything like that is prohibited. And we'll take care of make sure that that's not there. And then there were a few things in the not passed but relevant that you might want to look at. The Municipal League at least anticipates that these are things that will come up again. And so just to have on your in your thought process moving forward. One is using local funds to contract with lobbyists. We don't do that now, but they're looking in the future to prohibit that. The biggest one that came close to passing is to have partisan elections for municipal officials. So we would have primaries, the same kind of thing for council and all the other positions. It did not pass this time, but it was close. Again, happy to take any questions if anybody has any questions on any of these other items. Mayor, do you have any other ones you want to talk about? Okay. All right. Thank you all for your attention. And again, if anybody looks through this and you decide you have questions, just let me know. We're glad to do our best to answer them.
Hey, thank y'all for coming, and Bruce, as Bruce comes forward, we'll get ready for community service committee meeting. With the rest of you are welcome to leave, or you're welcome to stay and find out what's going on. So come on up, Bruce, and then we'll get started with community services. We'll follow it by, streets, and then parks will be the last one on the agenda. Yes, ma'am.
All right, good evening. We're going to start the July 15th Community Service Committee meeting. And at this time, we do have a quorum, but we're going to recognize our attendees, starting on my far right with Alderman Baptist. Evelyn Reed.
Tom Farmer.
As noted, we do have I'm sorry, Mr. Jeff. Okay, at this time, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the June 10th minutes. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we've already had the recap of the state legislation. So at this time, we're going to go to item number 5 on the new business. We have condemnation, liens, and code compliance. Mr. Bruce Thomas going to bring that. We have 313 East North Street, 706 Crestwood Drive, 2737 Ranchwood Drive, 2317 Wright Avenue, 17939 I-30, 1402 and 1406 Dixie Street. And we're removing item number 7, 2018 Congo Road. That one was paid. you need to turn your mic on, but before we go to a motion, I think Mr. Norris is here to ask the question or speak on 1402 Dixie and 1406.
Hey, you turn that around, please. Thank you. Mr. Norris, if you'll come up to the mic, state your name and
Yes, thank you. My name is Brad Norris, sometimes called Bradford Norris, and I'm here to see if, what's taking place on the properties at 1402 and 1406 Dixie Street. At one time, I owned the property, and I sold it to Quentin Johnson, and that's where I am. I tried at one time to redeem the property or talk to Quentin. I even paid taxes on the properties, but I never could get any official action. And then I received a letter that saying that the property was being demolished, and it had a cost on it of 5,000, you know, whatever the numbers added up to. And so that's why I'm here. To try to get an understanding what role I play in it.
Ownership of the property, all we did was remediate the nuisance on the property, which were the two structures that were falling down. And we notified all lien holders on that property, of which you were one. There was 6 or 7 other lien holders that had filed liens on that particular property against Mr. Johnson. So that's why you were in the process. Every time we mailed Mr. Johnson a letter, we mailed you a letter, we mailed the state, the Fed, everybody that had an interest in that property monetarily, we mailed them notices of that. So the property, the ownership of the property has not changed.
Mr. Johnson still owns the property.
Right now, it's still officially in his name, yes, sir. And this particular lien will show up when the property taxes come due. They are attached to the property taxes. And when it is filed, the property taxes cannot be paid until this lien judgment is satisfied. So that may or may not have an impact on, you know, how the ultimate direction of the property, ownership of the property.
So it's kind of like wait and see what happens.
Well, it normally is wait and see. We have never gotten any satisfaction at all from Mr. Johnson.
I hadn't either.
Yeah, well, we've been in the same boat.
Yeah.
So I don't anticipate anything happening there. The lien will be filed, the property taxes will come due, the lien will show up as part of the property tax, the owing of funds as far as attachment to the property taxes. And then if they continue to be delinquent over the next 3 or 4 years, the state will seize the property and the county will auction the property.
Okay, well, one other question. I'm not really attached to the property, but I received, like you said, I understand that. So when the lien is filed, I won't be a part of that.
That's right. You were given notice simply because you were a lien holder. You had an interest in the property as a lien holder, just like the IRS did, just like there were several people that filed liens against the property as a result of Mr. Johnson owing money on it. So that you were one of 7 in that regard. you're not responsible for this. This was just a notice. We give notice to any lien holders because now we're one of them too. So that was the purpose of those notice letters.
Okay, all right. Pretty much clears it up with me.
If you have any additional questions, I'm over in community development. You can call over there or come up anytime and we'll be happy to sit down with you.
Okay. My reason for asking, there were another piece of property associated with the contract and the deal that I made with Ms. Johnson, and I didn't see it included in the letter. Maybe it wasn't demolished or anything, it's just a piece of land.
Now,
So but I will get back with you, get clarity.
okay, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
you. Is there anyone else here?
Is there anybody here for any of the other properties? This time, the chair would entertain a motion to go forth for the council with resolutions for the properties listed here, with the exception of 2018 Congo Road. We have a motion and a second to take all of these recommendations from the code enforcement to council. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item B is the resolution of the 2025 Independence Day resolution.
Okay, this came down from the governor's office there. Next year is the 250th birthday of this great nation, and everywhere around the state, all municipalities and counties are passing a resolution to honor that. Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders created the Arkansas 250 Commission to plan, organize, and coordinate Arkansas celebration activities and events leading up to July 4th. And I know that the county is going to pass the same resolution. The city of Bryant's going to pass the same resolution. I'm bringing it before this council to also pass it. So that's what this is all about, is just to recognize the fact that the United States of America is going to be 250 years old. Matter of fact, we have a committee within the county of mayors and the county judge, Mr. Lyons, and others to come up with some type of celebration for next year. We've had one meeting and another one is scheduled in the future. So that's what this resolution is about.
Any questions or comments? Okay. There's nothing under old business. Nothing
You want
Oh, excuse me. For the, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, sir. Okay, under item 6 is old business. There's anything listed. Item 7, discussion. Item 8, DRC monthly report.
I'll have to get that out electronically tomorrow to all the members. We had a
Okay,
glitch on that.
okay. Is there anything else to come before this committee? If not, thank you, and we are adjourned.
All right, as John makes his way forward, we'll go right into the street committee. We're ready.
All right, Mr. Mayor, it's 5:54 on July 15th, and I've called the City of Benton Streets and Drainage Committee meeting to order. Recognize the attendees, starting by far left, or far right, Mr. Baptist.
Evelyn Reed.
Farmer.
Jeff Ham. We have a quorum. The next item of business, number 3, is the improvements of the minutes of June 10th, I believe, yes. June 10th. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Item number 4 is the resolution to request naming of a bridge, the Paul Baker Bridge. Mr. Mayor, do you want to go through?
Yes, sir. About 2 weeks ago, I got a phone call from RDOT, and they said that there'd been a request to rename the westbound I-30 bridge on the interstate in honor of a fallen firefighter from Turtle Creek, which happened August the 19th, 2007. Well, I explained to them that it was a state highway and a state bridge, and I didn't think the city could name that. And they said, well, it is in the city of Benton, therefore the city has to do it. A resolution has to be passed and sent to the commission, the state commission, and Senator Hammer has asked that we do this in honor of this volunteer fireman. He fell off the bridge to his death. I checked with Chief Evans. He was here earlier, but he's no longer here, and he thought it was also a good idea since it was a volunteer fireman from Turtle Creek, and some of our people worked hand in hand with them. And so what the process is, Senator Hammer will write a letter of recommendation to do so. He'll be here at the council meeting. He couldn't be here tonight to speak on the subject. What'll happen is we'll pass a resolution. Our part is that once the sign has been established, and it's going to be donated by West Rock Sign Company, then our street department will have to place the sign according to RDOT specifications, and then we will be required to maintain the sign from there on out. If the council decides to move on with this and pass the resolution during the council meeting, that'll go to their commission meeting, which is in August, and we can't do anything until it's permitted by RDOT from that point. But the commission has to vote on it before it'll get permit. So that's the reason for this resolution. 114. Well,
114.
one right before the one.
Yes, sir. Sure. State your name and just make sure the mic's on.
Yes, sir. Is it on? Yes, sir. My name is Chip Bosley. A lot of you know me from a different hat, but I wanted to be here tonight because this means a whole lot to me. Try not to get choked up, but Paul Baker was my mentor at Turtle Creek Fire Department, and him being my mentor, I never dreamed in a million years that in the middle of the night, I would be the one that had to go underneath that bridge to see what happened. And so anyway, Paul was my partner that night. So it was myself, Paul that was on scene, and our fire chief that was on scene. This would mean the world to Turtle Creek Fire Department, to his family, and me too. But it's not about me, it's about his family, his widow, and his 3 kids. So if there's any questions about Paul, who he was, or anything, I can answer those, surely.
Anyone have any questions? Steve? We have a motion to approve and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. You're welcome. Very much so. Mr. Ritchie, would you go through the project update, please?
Yes. The one thing I would like to mention about updates is the downtown overlay is going to be underway shortly, weather permitting. Hopefully it's tomorrow night is what they told us. And they've actually showed up a little early. I think they're going to do some prep work as early as tonight, possibly. So that's what downtown. I can take any questions on about any other project that you may have. And also Taylor here with McClellan, if you have any questions for any of the other projects up there. Taylor, do you want to give an update on the project?
Taylor Clark with McClellan. I've been here a few times. We got a few projects that we're hoping to get to construction in the next few months. Cross Street Phase 3 is actually going to go before Cross Street Phase 2. That is just due to the fact of Phase 2 is going through RDOT. There's a little bit more regulations. There's environmental studies that's got to be completed before we can get the acquisition. I know John's already been getting a lot of the easements for Phase 3. We've wrapped up the plans, and so we're hoping that we can take that out to bid here shortly. So hopefully we'll do Phase 3 in the next few months. We'll have to, I say a few months, the bidding process, make sure the contractor gets their bids and insurance, all that. It takes a few months to get it actually boots on the ground. Phase 2, once we're at 90% plans, we're getting ready to submit everything back to RDOT. Once that gets approved, hopefully that'll be later this year that we'll be able to get that to construction. So hopefully all that kind of drainage work and sidewalk work along Cross Street, that'll all be wrapped up here shortly. And then the Congo Shenandoah roundabout, we're still waiting on one last property, and that is kind of the last piece of the puzzle on that. Also, I think it was approved last year, the resolution for Congo widening, the design of it. I've checked on that a few times. Unfortunately, there's still no job number or tracking at RDOT, so we're kind of still waiting for the go-ahead to put together that and go from there. Also, South Shoreline, I don't know if y'all been out there here lately. We did a drainage improvement project, and they're wrapping up. I talked to the contractor this morning, and all that's left is some paving to finish up where we had busted up to put the new pipe in the ground. So in the next week or two, that should wrap up, and we'll be doing a final field inspection for that project. Is there any other projects anybody has any questions about? It's the intersection of Short and Conway. Basically where all the water in the storm coming down, because everything comes from the top of the hill, all the water coming down jumps that curve there. So Phase 3 is going to put several inlets in that intersection to capture all the water. We do have a future Phase 4 that's going to extend towards the courthouse and then go back up the hill to try to capture a bunch of that water before it gets to the courthouse. Everything that we're doing in, these downstream phases accommodates all this drainage that we're going to try to capture in the future. So we have the pipes underneath the ground that's going to capture that, trying to get everything underneath the ground so that it's not flooding everybody's backyard. But Phase 3 will kind of fix that intersection and give us a place to tie into as we go further up the hill down by the courthouse.
Any other questions? Discussion? Okay. any other project you want to talk about? Okay. Yes, sir?
It's actually been put out to bid, and they did select a contractor, and they, I think it should be close to starting, actually supposed to start.
But they have unbelievable number of days.
Any other questions or conversation? Being none, this meeting is adjourned.
All right, Junior, come on. Parks, as soon as you get up here.
Same junior for the last.
Yes, sir. Lee, is your mic on? If we could, it could be.
How's that? How's that?
That's about,
Okay, I'd like to call the July 15th Parks Committee meeting to order. We've already taken roll 3 or 4 different times of council members, and they look like they're still here. So I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And at this time, after discussion with Judd Hart, I'm going to turn it over to Parks rep to take it from item 4 through 6.
Thank you. So we are bringing to the committee a membership price increasing. Just a couple months ago, we increased our daily admissions from $4 to $5 on our youth and senior daily passes. Going back and looking at our membership rates, we have not raised membership rates since the building opened, which was April 1st of 2017. So we are proposing a $10 increase to all of our memberships. In your packet here, you can see all of our different memberships that we have currently. This is only going to affect yearly memberships. This does not affect any military or senior memberships, and this does not affect our rate lock memberships that were created when the building first opened. So we went back and looked at some numbers on that. We will only have 153 current memberships that would not be affected by this $10 increase. believe so. I mean, our building is 8, 9 years old, so we're starting to see more maintenance on the building. This increase will just kind of help us offset those costs based due to rising costs. This will still keep our facility cheaper than any other community centers around us as well. So we're not doing anything going above anybody else.
Second.
You talk first.
Say yes.
Yes.
The next item we have on our agenda is the Benton High School tennis agreement. This is something that we do every year. This agreement allows them to use our tennis courts at Tyndall Park for their season and practices. And in return, we get the opportunity to use their track for our track program. There's no monetary value in this transaction. So just bringing this forth to y'all for approval to continue this agreement with them.
Make a motion that we approve. Yes.
Our next item is the swim agreement as well. So this one is a little different. We do have a charge rate of $1,000 for the Benton High School swim team to use our facility. Again, this is a contract that we've done multiple years and just want to continue this partnership with the school district.
Second.
All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion passes.
The only other business that we have is Lauren Brown, who is our special events manager. She's been with our department for a little over 3 years. We've just asked for y'all to keep her and her family in your thoughts and prayers. Her mother passed away this weekend, and will be laid to rest later this week. It's Thursday, 2 o'clock. Thursday at 2 o'clock in Pine Bluff. Sorry, I couldn't remember the time of it.
That's all that we have.
All right, thank y'all for tonight.